of women, young women, amazing scholars, and people who have become some of my sisters as well. So it is a great privilege to introduce to you another leadership council member from ADRSA, Ms. Kira Daniels, who is a doctoral candidate here at Harvard University, to give our first panel. Good morning, everyone. How are you? Oh, that was a little weak.
All right.
How are you? Thank you. I'm here to introduce the first panel. Dr. Joytine Michelle, who's actually not able to join us this morning, but she will hopefully be joining us later this afternoon, so I'm taking her place. I would like to introduce with pleasure our first panel, which is titled Using the Digital in Service of Divine, Skype, Social Justice, and Service. And we will begin with Ayodele Odido, who is coming from Tulane University. He's a PhD student there. And the title of his presentation is Can Olumila Talk via Skype? Babalawo and Remote Divination in the 21st Century. Please join me in welcoming.
Greetings, everyone. I'm excited to have this opportunity to share the tape with you. I hope to learn from our discussions as much as I share. I'm a Babalawo initiated in Havana, practicing for 12 years. I'm also an anthropologist, presently enrolled in a graduate program at Tulane University. I'm presenting today, my presentation today explores the phenomenon of remote divination, specifically the theological and logistical implications of divination via Skype. I set out to explore the question, is remote divination spiritually valid? Must the client be present to hear the truth of the DeFi consultation? My research on Skype and other technologies is part of a large discussion on the use of media and technologies in the Afro-Atlantic religion. For example, Karen Richmond, in her book, Migration and Voodoo, describes how Haitian migrants in Florida and in their home communities in Haiti sent audio cassettes back and forth. When audio cassettes records first became affordable in the 1980s, non-illiterate Haitian migrants began to use them to send and receive messages, prayers, guidance with their families and voodoo communities back in Haiti. Sometimes recording entire voodoo rituals and sharing them via cassette. Richmond argues that the audio cassettes help cement community ties by creating vast transnational performance spaces. More recently, anthropologist Aisha Velez de Jesus has written about the circulation of video recording of Santeria rituals between Havana and the United States, which we heard about. Fantastic stuff. Whereby on the island, Santeros shared events with their god children abroad. However, I know of no academic studies that specifically treat the logistical and theological issues around remote divination sessions in any great detail. My study investigates the usage of Skype and other modern communication devices in the performance of DeFi divination by Babalawo within the Afro-Atlantic diaspora. I look at the process and logistics of remote divination using an endemic approach, seeking to understand and theorize the underlying issues. My focus is not on the psychodynamic or even the psychotherapeutic interpretations of divination itself, but comparative use of remote divination specifically in regards to the performance of the Babalawo. As scholar practitioners, we all possess a unique insider-outsider perspective that give understanding as well as greater access. My study asked a small sample of Babalawo clients about their experiences with remote divination. Participants were selected using a purposeful sampling method from a population of Babalawos and clients who partake of Babalawo services. 5 Babalawo were selected, 3 initiated in the Lukumi school, 2 initiated in Nigerian school. All 5 have over 10 years of experience as a Babalawo. 7 clients were selected, all females, all based in the United States. 4 of them, 4 of the 7 clients were also initiated on Mauritius. All communication methods reported were interactive in nature, with the ability to ask questions at the time of the reading. An expanded sample could provide examples of non-interactive divinatory sessions. The quintessential image, the quintessential a mental image of that forms of a divination session may be that of the Babalawo seated on the straw mat, the tools of his trade before him. These iconic images of what divination looks like come to us from early similar lithographies such as Bascom, but today, remote divination is a growing phenomenon in the worldwide E5 community. My research indicates that Babalawo using remote divination believe that is a valid and useful process for future-oriented modern professionals. My paper explores concerns about remote divination from both the diviner and client perspectives. I look at not only the issues of practicality, convenience, and accessibility, but also the theological soundness and logic of divination by Skype. And my research found that Babalawo's interview believed that the crucial relationship is between the Babalawo and Orunmila. Therefore, the presence of the client is not a requirement. During the divination session, the divine presence, Orunmila, speaks through his oracle Ifa, speaks on issues related to the client's destiny, and fashions a remedy to address the problems at hand. In fact, while the presence of the oracle in Babalawo's presence is crucial, it is not important that the oracle be in the presence of the client at all. The spirit of Orunmila sees the client regardless of the location. Once commenced, the divination process is a conversation between Babalawo and Orunmila using the chosen tools of his trade. So from the Babalawos, all the Babalawos I interviewed expressed generally positive feelings regarding remote divination. Some shared a personal preference for in-person divination, but suggested that remote divination was a necessity due to constraints of time and location. All the Babalawo I worked with were in agreement that remote divination is theologically valid. For the reasons I've already kind of talked about. Two said that they do them all the time. They mentioned clients all over the world, including China, India, and Turkey. Another two said that they perform them when necessary, but prefer in-person sessions. The seriousnness of the situation requiring divination was one factor in the need to present and hold the Igbo in their hands. Igbo are the small, Igbo are the small items like a pebble or a cowrie shell used to make determinations of general orientation of the reading and also to answer yes or no questions. The final Babalawo suggests that because of time management issues, he actually preferred remote readings. From the client's perspective, all the clients I interviewed expressed generally positive feelings regarding remote divination. A few were very enthusiastic about remote readings, having had only positive experiences. Only one informant initially expressed a negative perspective on remote readings until she began to talk to me about her personal struggles. This led to her wondering aloud if I could look into her situation remotely, of course. I said I would, and took that as a sign of her approval of remote divination, in spite of her initial reticence. While some clients expressed a general fondness for old-fashioned in-person divinations, they seemed very comfortable with receiving divination through electronic means. I grouped the concerns that they expressed into four meta issues: trust, relationships and community, convenience, and energy. Trust was the most salient of the meta issues expressed by the clients I interviewed. They needed to trust the Babalawo to select it for the reading. They felt that not being in the presence of the Babalawo created more opportunities for unwanted things to transpire. For example, not seeing the Igbo in the hand, the results were open to manipulation, they felt. Some articulated the desire to have their own elder present during the divination. An elder's presence would provide assurances that if unfamiliar divinatory signs appeared, the elder could, quote, intercede on my behalf and ask more pertinent questions that I may not have thought of or describe certain, but that he's or do's in layman's terms that are easier for me to understand. Unquote. The idea that trust must be built and sustained throughout the course of the reading was also a theme that emerged from my interviews. In remote divinations, we lose full communication via body language, facial expressions, vocal tone, and touch. Sometimes the client needs a sympathetic smile or even a handheld, particularly as they react to the revelations presented. Lack of ability to touch and read facial expressions in close detail are challenges during any communication over technology. Related to trust issues was the theme of seeing how Babalawo lived and his workspace. A Babalawo living poorly could suggest a low level of ability with magical arts. And an opposing view was that finding a Babalawo living humbly was not a problem if there was a sense that he was living his Odu or his life path. While sometimes expressed that Babalawo living well could be a sign of success and mastery, living conspicuously could conversely be construed as a sign of improper living, drug dealing, or abusing clients with exorbitant fees and unnecessary rituals. At base was the sense that seeing a Babalawo's living and working workspace offered clients more information about his lifestyle and needs, which helped them build rapport and maintain trust. One client likened this situation to the Bernie-Hillary presidential contest, where in her eyes, Bernie is honest and humble, while Hillary is living on stolen Wall Street dollars. This is her idea. I didn't want to bring that up. Nonetheless, so for slide. Now, for community and relationships, the third element of my findings centered on the second of my findings centered on long-term relationships and community development. For example, the ability to learn at the elder's feet over time may be lacking in relationships that do not go on beyond remote divination. Client 4 noted that, quote, human interaction is an important catalyst, unquote. Some clients commented that impromptu conversations were less available when a phone call was required as opposed to when already at the diviner's home. And expressed doubts about whether and to what degree community building could be maintained via virtual spiritual encounters. In fact, one of the Babalawos that I spoke with mentioned that when he was a novice Babalawo, he spent nearly every day after work at his elder's home studying Ifa. Preferences for in-person divination were most visible and compelling for clients focused on long-term relationships and community development as opposed to getting some work done. Whether as part of a community relationship or simply as a service, convenience was another key factor. As the religion has expanded, adherents find themselves further away from locales large enough to host a working diviner. Being able to get services via Skype allows people far removed from Ifa communities to participate and connect with religion in a seemingly healthy manner. One client said, quote, I have godparents that live out of state. There have been numerous times when I needed a reading. My godparents were able to provide more much needed counsel to me over the phone than I would have gotten otherwise, unquote. The final meta issue was the most elusive to capture. Many clients felt that there is an energy, as Aisha talked about, to a divination. Even clients who approved the remote divination or used it for reasons of convenience or logistics sometimes debated whether it was present in the same way during a remote session. Client 5 suggested that she could not feel the presence of the spirits if she's not present with the spirits. Another expressed that she easily connects with the spirits and that this does not have an impact, saying energy is energy. A third client suggested that if she has already connected with spirit in person, this connection is maintained regardless of distance, as long as there was an initial touch from the spirits. And client 7 favored in-person readings, but noted if it is impossible to get a reading in person, a reading over the phone or internet outranks no reading at all any day, unquote. In conclusion, remote divination readings long distance is a contemporary discussion for many reasons. The Ifa Orisha community is global and growing. Technology abounds, allowing people to travel further and communicate easier over increasingly longer distances in a quicker fashion. What this creates are relationships that span cities, states, countries, and continents. These relationships are difficult, if not impossible, to maintain if not through technology. For those that live close to the spiritual community that sustains and teaches them, long distance readings typically only happen when they are traveling or in cases of emergency. frequency of diabetes. For those who live far away from the community, have no established community, or don't know or trust the community that is near them, have few cost-effective options. Having one's needs serviced with the help of technology seems a necessity. Nevertheless, I think that ideally everything should be handled personally and locally for practical reasons alone. It's easier to accomplish everything that follows as a consequence of the divination. The Ebo, offerings and sacrifice, the cleaning, the follow-up, etc., etc., etc. This research I presented today is based on a set of initial interviews with a small sample of Babalaos and clients. I plan to expand my study in the future to include a larger sample of Babalaos and clients for a more complete picture of the various theological and logistical concerns, issues facing remote divination. Interviews with diviners and clients across various Afro-Atlantic traditions would also expand the study, as well as surveying the religious stories, legends, and myths for potential examples of remote readings. Thank you all for your time, and I look forward to your questions and further discussion.
Thank you so much. We are going to move to our second presenter on our panel today. This is Dr. Mfayeke Castor. She is joining us from Texas A&M University, and her presentation is titled Be a Calabash, Be a Vessel of Service, Social Justice and Spiritual Citizenship in Afro-Atlantic Religions. Please join me in welcoming her.
Thank you so much, Caro Alafia Oburoboye. So I'm so glad to be here today, to be back here today. This is a safe space for me. This is a spiritual home for me, an academic home for me. And I've seen many familiar faces. We have fellowshipped here in previous years, and I'm looking forward very much to the following discussion and interchange of ideas. Today, what I'm presenting is a new project. So please take it in that manner, be kind and gentle as it's coming forth. It's my last project I've been working on for 15 years, so it's been a really long time since I birthed a new project. And I forgot how it feels like jumping out of the plane, not sure if you have that parachute. All right, so if you're ready to roll, so be a calabash, be a vessel for service. Today's talk is part of this new project that I've referenced. It's part of a larger project that I'm working on called Black Spirits Matter. It has roots in a second project that I have recently begun. Let me repeat, Black Spirits Matter. So the first foray into this project I did was Diaspora Comes Home, which explored the local impact of spiritual circuit increase between the diaspora and the continent. It is a hallmark of the transnational Yoruba religion that runs from Nigeria throughout the African diaspora. So making sure we have no technology problems, let's give credit to others. And for this crowd, I can flip through these very quickly. All right, so we're talking about the corner of West Africa here, the Yoruba people, right, largely in Nigeria, throughout many other neighboring nations that cross them. All right, Nigeria, 162 million, and Ifa divination system, which also encompasses Orisha. So in this first foray, Diaspora Comes Home, I looked at the relationship between people who came from the diaspora to Nigeria, to Yoruba land for trainings, for spiritual trainings, for pilgrimage, for ritual, and the impact that had locally in local shrines. In doing so, I became aware of what has inspired the project that I'm presenting to you today. So the project today emerged out of this and examines the intersection of social justice work and transnational spiritual community in African-based religions of Orisha Ifa. My interest is in what transformative and liberatory work emerges out of these religions as the diaspora meets the homeland. The divine and the digital are our theme today, inspired my reflection on transnational spiritual networks, social media, and social justice. Modes of transnational connectivity and relationality, as was so well mapped out by Aisha Belisay de Jesus, our morning speaker, in her fabulous work. If you guys haven't bought her book, please do. Electric Santeria. It is fabulous. All right? She refers to transnational connectivity and relationality, what I talk about as transnational spiritual networks, transnational being a word you'll hear repeatedly today, over and over, as these communities are disparate, but they come together, right? And they come together through spiritual technology. And examples of spiritual technology go back in time, like the Yoruba Kanako, the ability to travel long distance rapidly through magical means, now a highly mythic spiritual technology, to spiritual technologies at the heart of Orisha. Possession is just one example. Ofo Ashe, informing many of our other spiritual technologies. The West African religions and their cousins across the waters have embraced what we now call social media, should come as no surprise. From the very beginning of the internet, even before the graphical browsers that we now take as given, Orisha and other African-based religions had their places in cyberspace. I can remember this, as I worked in the emerging internet field in the late 1990s. So what I'm talking about, in part, comes out of a history where I came to Orisha at the same time I came to the internet. I was a baby in Orisha at the same time I was a baby on the internet. And as my elders were schooling me in our lineage and the ways of our lineage, I was also getting information off of the internet before web browsers, when it was all text-based. Yes, I know I'm dating myself, but, right? And there was the Orisha mailing list. And so I would show up at the Ile with information that I had gotten on this Orisha mailing list, and they'd be like, no, that is not what we do. Right? It's sort of like when you go to your doctor and they're like, stop Google. Just stop, right? They were like, no, don't get your knowledge online. You don't know who these people are. No, right? So I was very intrigued by this online community. And when I went to graduate school for my master's, at the behest of my ancestors, but that is another story. But if I shake to my ancestors, that's why I'm here today. I focused my work on the African diaspora, specifically the Yoruba impact. And out of this interest, my MA thesis came, and now 15 years ago, Orisha Online, virtual community in the Black Atlantic. Nothing that I would want to really read again, written in the master's thesis 15 years ago, but the core is something that I'm returning to in my second project, in one of those full circular moments that makes life so interesting. The transnational global connections of diaspora religion, as noted by many from Latore to Paul Johnson and beyond, are well suited to the ritual connections of today's social media. While virtual engagements of the like in our first speaker's excellent work, Electric Santeria, occur through electronic mediation, my focus is more on the building of new communities and networks through shared goals of social justice and empowerment work. From founder Funaya Woods, and let's please all give a moment, sending her healing energy and light and love. We know she is with us through technology. The irony of that today, right? And through spirit connectivity, right? Her work running a leadership institute in Oshogo to the work of Eyes for Africa, run by another initiated academic, providing eyeglasses for people throughout Yoruba land. There are new pathways of interchange happening between and within communities across the Atlantic. The difference between then and now, over the 15 years, for me in my work, is a framework of spiritual citizenship that goes beyond the Black Atlantic, that I'm using to explore one aspect of virtual community. Right? So what originally inspired my reflection before the conference call, right, is I think many of us have seen this photo, right, that circulated on Facebook, on Twitter. This was in Baltimore, right? And I hunted down the sister, so on the internet, right? Not in person, but I found her name, right? And she is Shamika Smalling. And she reports that she went out on the street on a Tuesday and decided I wanted to smudge and give writing. I went to Everyone's Place, an African-centered store on North Avenue, and bought a smudge stick. I said I was going to smudge up to Fulton because I heard that North and Fulton was kind of where some of the worst had happened. Smudging is about clearing negative energy and creating a protecting energy. My intention was to make sure everybody who was present, whether you were police, a Black man, a white woman, an Asian little boy, that you were protected. Some of what's being said, and this is about the photo that was picked up in the newspapers, is that I was smudging the evil out of the police.
Well,
I was actually smudging everyone that I passed and being a channel for healing energy to the space. I have never seen so much stoicism on the part of police in my life. I'm aggressive in my positivity. I'm like, you gotta respond to me. Actually, more than one or two said thank you. Some of them shook their heads a little bit, but not one of them said not to do it. There were a couple that I was able to have some conversations with. I realized that everybody's uncomfortable. They're not allowed to take breaks. They're not allowed to eat, yet they're police. The truth be told, we're all human beings. We're just human beings in the moment. By the time I had come back after having smudged the one line, these police were not there anymore. I guess they were overwhelmed by the spirit and they had to do something different. Or maybe there was a shift change. So let's go back to the photo. So that was an inspiration for me because it made me think about African ontologies, African epistemologies, different ways of understanding energy, different ways of understanding power, and the spiritual technology to manipulate those energies and to manipulate the power. So what I would like to leave you with today is the inspiring act that's captured on photo and the subsequent circulation on Facebook, Twitter, and other means came together with my awareness of an online campaign for social justice across different African-based religions. This raised several questions for me and prompted my interest in how social networking technologies is used by African-based religions to organize for social justice. An example of this that I reflect on today are Oloshos United, a group formed in Miami, Florida by Willie Ramos that has expanded globally through a Facebook page. There are branches from Texas to Philly, the Netherlands to Cuba, Trinidad to London, and more. Some have public groups on Facebook, some closed, and I imagine some secret, an avenue to be explored further in later larger work. It started out in 2014 as World Peace and Healing to Wear White for Right, which I took part in, as you can see here, and with my ABRSA t-shirt representing, has grown. It has grown phenomenally, and their scope has grown. So the title of today's talk came from a flyer from Oloshos United New York, where they were doing a drive of warm coat drive for the winter in New York. They said, bring a warm coat. They had organized contacts, who to drop off, who could pick up. And in the flyer that they made, that they posted on the Facebook site, it said, be a calabash, be a vessel of service. Right? Among numerous other activities, OSHA's United Chicago in the 2015 activity report said that they, moved by the unrest in Ferguson, Missouri on May 9th, gathered at the river to pray to Oshun for peace and healing for that community and the country at large, so that the injustices, unrest, and despair that we witnessed in Ferguson would not plague us in the future. This speaks to me of a responsibility to draw on spiritual technologies and apply their power to collective healing, not only of the individual and the body, which they surely do, but also on healing the social and the political. This responsibility I conceptualize under the frame of spiritual citizenship and apply to this globally based community to explore how social media informs the formation of community within and across these religions in the service of liberation, peace, healing, and social justice. Let me leave you with my concept of spiritual citizenship, which emerged from my ethnographic study of Orisha religion in Trinidad. I locate the spiritual practices in the heart of critical performances of West African ontologies and epistemologies. By spiritual citizenship, I mean the rights and responsibilities of belonging to a larger community, not necessarily limited to the national, inclusive of the global, transnational, international, that are formed by a relation to the divine and a search for liberation and social justice. All right, so I'm using this framework to apply to the online community work is doing. I have other examples of which I'm going to skip, but I leave you today. Thank you very much. I leave you with my thoughts. Black Spirits Matter will explore these earlier questions and includes tensions of identity, authority, and authenticity as they intersect with sacred knowledge, transmission, and spiritual economies. This newly informed project will do so through the theme of social justice and activities, going beyond lessons of identity and knowledge to investigate comparative ideas of freedom, justice, and rights. Does a transnational spiritual community have a shared vision? I leave you with that question, and I look forward to your input and answers and your help birthing this new project. In our discussion session. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful. We are going to progress to our final presenter for this morning's panel. And this is Dr. LaGrace Benson. And she's an independent scholar, has studied art history extensively, and is also this year's president of the Haitian Studies Association. The title of her presentation today is Contact Vodou and Web Vodou. Please join me in welcoming.
Good morning, everyone. This is very inspiring, isn't it? I came here, I was so pleased to be to be here because I have so much to learn. I know I'm 1,000 years old, older than church, to say where I come from, but I know I have so much to learn. It's already happening, and I'm very happy to be here. I'm going to talk from a much cooler point of view, which comes from psychology, specifically experimental psychology, most specifically visual, but incorporating all the other senses. J.J. Gibson's investigations and writings of several decades ago opened a path to the understanding of perception as ecological. Other ongoing discussions with art historian Sir Gombrich, with psychologists of the visual arts, with Arnheim, and with experiment psychologist Julian Hochberg. In the seminars at Cornell University, they developed a non-dualistic way to observe and understand the arts. It takes into account a whole being situated ecologically and creating communications that present back into the environment. Although secular in belief and practice, these investigators equally opened a way to understand religious belief and behavior as environmentally situated. Each local voodoo environment in Haiti is distinctive, and diaspora locales differ markedly from those in Haiti. With all voodoo lacus, what they all have in common are designated spaces for the ceremonies, for ritual goods, for an altar, and usually for a burnt offering. The local situation provides an extraordinarily rich environment, dense with sights, sounds, aromas, touches, actions, the drama of the voodoo liturgy, communal participation of singing and dancing, and personally directed teaching and healing. Moreover, the life of the community is actively present as memory, as continuity directly referenced in the ceremony, and as expectation for the immediate and distant future. In Haiti, a tropical environment surrounds the space of the ceremony, while in diaspora, those environments differ greatly. And the nature of the information for people to pick up and use varies greatly. In either case, the immediate ecosystem of Laku and its ceremonies and the agricultural, fishing, or urban ecosystem continuously features in the whole embodied ecological experience of a participant. It is nested ecosystems. Person, in Laku, in ceremony, in Haiti or diaspora, in the universe of water, earth, and sky that is populated with other human beings, including the ancestors, with inspirited animals and vegetation, and with the Lua, the resident, invisible, but active mysteries. The internet ecosystem is also continuously nested, person to universe. This important commonality should not be dismissed, it should be kept in mind. However, distinctive features of internet nested systems differ from those of Laku voodoo in significant respects. The information available on the internet seems boxed away from the environment of the room where the participant is situated. The reduced information to be picked up is only visual and oral. And as a medium, the boxed environment is highly alphanumeric, symbolic, and conceptual. Instead of a sense of continuity from participant to infinity, there is a clear, albeit I will say incorrect, there's a perception of two locales, here and out there. One reduced in available locale information, the other impalpably distant. Voodoo internet is both direct and mediated, as is Laku voodoo, but the ratio, scale, and locality of direct to mediated information are different, and attention functions quite differently. The work of a Mambo Ongan in the local voodoo is of higher order complexity and subtlety. It involves a detailed ecosystem, direct eye and touch contact, and being here now with members of the Laku. Only with this degree of intimacy can Mambo or Ungan provide specifically efficacious wisdom and compassion. The same can be said for those of priest or rabbi, guru, lama, pastor. Central to all aspects of the work is that of calling and directing attention to precise aspects of the total environmental reality. To bring attention to bear on that particular aspect of the infinitely dense structure of information, the Mambo or Ungan uses a variety of strategies. He or she directs the theater of ritual with staging, costuming, symbolic design, and presentation, conducts the liturgy itself with litany, songs, prayers, and processions, and a collaboration with the drummers that is too delicate and subtle to even be talked about directly, manages to bring the whole congregation into a situation where they experience together something which comes from here and here. And in these ceremonies, this is all accomplished within the nested ecology of individual person to universe. And in these ceremonies, there's more attention to the material participation of trees, plants, crops, animals, waters, and weather than is ordinary in monotheistic religions. In contrast to this ecologically sensitive and inclusive management by a central, specially chosen person collaborating with the social Waku, the work of 1, the internet content provider, 2, the designer, 3, the production and hosting manager, is divided into task-specific assignments. Typically, each is working in a different locality, and often there are few or no shared experiences outside the work of creating and managing the website. This can lead to either enrichment or reduction, commonly the latter. The goal of making everyday life on the planet more endurable, if not more joyful, is more central for the participant in this internet relation than it is for the website Troika. The Troika pay attention to capturing as wide an audience as possible for promulgation of the message, to expanding the message territory, and often to maximizing income. Most critically, the information available to be perceived at a distance is discontinuous in itself, truly out of reach and grasp. And distractions include the ubiquitous pop-ups and sidebar ads. In the located beauty ceremonial experience, everyone, Ungana, Mambo, song leader, flag bearers, drummers, initiates, and even the most casual visitor is a participant. Indeed, it is practically impossible not to become a participant, to get caught up in and embody that experience. Daily family life is continuous with ceremonies of occasion. Time and place for any ceremony rises out of the ongoing life of the community. There are times for traditional services as well. In a ceremony, a partaker is immersed, better still, is immiscibly metabolizing a continuously flowing ecosystem. The rich information of the event is embodied at every level of perception and proprioception. In the current state of the arts of TV and internet, a beauty ceremony or daily life of a Waku is impossible. Each can be photographed, but that means that the viewpoint and selection of points of attention is that of the person behind the camera. The final presentation is the view and focus of attention of the director and the editor of the footage. The observers are outside the community of the ceremony and outside the community of internet viewers. Those people choose the point of view, the focus of attention, designers